Hi everyone, so we have been blasting the PoE Scourge League for a while with my group now, and I want to share the initial findings of the Scourge League mechanic, which is incredibly juicy. So as you have probably seen yourself, you have this blood meter that fills up here at the top right, and once it reaches half you can shift into the Nightmare, which puts you in this second layer of the map, and you can defeat all these demons down there, and it will slowly deplete until you get kicked out again. Now the thing is, this fills up really fast and you want to shift in and out of the Nightmare really often to make sure that you get the most out of it. Whenever you go in, it will transform the entire world around you and spawn all these demons. Good thing is, everything around you gets stunned for like a split second, so you have a bit of time to react. In fact, you can also precast certain abilities, for example your totems, or in my case I have Vial Vein of Arrows, so I just pop that in two different directions and it will basically obliterate everything around you. So that is pretty neat, and it creates an entire second layer of the entire map. Your minimap will actually be covered again when you shift into the Nightmare, and you have to uncover it again just like the regular map, which means that you want to clear both sides of the map as efficient as possible by moving around and making sure that you get all the corners and the big areas where all the monsters are located. So you're gonna see this here now. I'm gonna shift into the Nightmare, and you see that the entire minimap is hidden again, and here we're gonna uncover this now piece by piece, just like the regular map, and then we get shift out again and we are back to normal. Now this is the first and most important mechanic to deal with. You want to make sure that especially in those open areas where there's lots of monsters, you clear it out. You don't really have to try to do every little corner, but definitely the more the better, especially later on when you progress into juicier maps with lots of quantity, lots of monster pack size, and maybe scarabs and everything on the map as well. That obviously gives you more for your investment, which makes your overall gains much higher. In fact, I believe this is probably going to be one of the juiciest league mechanics yet, just because of how many extra monsters there are, and then obviously all the other stuff that you can do with the Crucible. As you run around in the Nightmare zone, you also get this exposed to corruption stacks here, which gives the monsters 1% more damage and also gives you 1% more quantity and 1% more rarity, which is incredibly powerful. So essentially you can stack up 100, even more, 150. We had like close to 200 in the map. So this goes really high. I imagine like some crazy endgame maps you can probably reach something like 500%. You're gonna get one shot by everything. It's gonna be beautiful. But also everything you kill is gonna drop so much loot. And that's not everything, because you can also make these Scourge maps and you can corrupt them up to 10 times to get extra rewards and extra modifiers, and these are essentially like a bit different with how they handle the league mechanic. So there are different triggers, but for example there are some that shift you into Nightmare randomly, there are some where you automatically shift when you reach the full meter, and these kind of things, and you also gain some extra rewards on the map. Now I have like just this one example here that I've been experimenting with, trying to go to tier 2, tier 3, but essentially you take the map, put it in there, make sure that you maybe juice it up a little bit, but don't go crazy with this, because probably you won't be able to run it anymore at some point if you keep scourging it up. When you look at some of those modifiers, like monsters in Nightmare regenerate 20% of life per second, you can already tell that's going to be quite tough if you engage those rare monsters or even a boss. There are some bosses hidden in there sometimes. We fought a couple of them already. Speaking of which, when you find one of these bosses, they have a little map icon and you can run there, and actually when you engage it, your Nightmare meter will not deplete, so you can fight it until it's dead, so to say. So this is pretty neat. I'm not sure yet entirely about the drops. They did drop a lot of loot and extra stuff, but no special uniques so far, so maybe there's going to be some hidden stuff. But essentially what I would suggest is, as you progress your Atlas, you probably just want to throw in like some little bit juiced up kind of easy map in there and just let it scourge up for a little while, and then come back later to do it. Because while you're unlocking every map here, you don't really want to go back and run the same maps over and over just because you managed to scourge them to rank 1. I would rather suggest just scourge it up a couple times and then do like one really juicy map, and otherwise progress with your Atlas first. Obviously I'm just experimenting with this myself for now. It also takes a while to actually scourge up the map, so it's like something like maybe 5 to 10 maps depending on how efficiently you clear monsters in a Nightmare and how many there are. But these maps can actually take quite a while to run, much more than a regular one, and you don't really want to like stay back in the progression too much. Now, some other tips I can give when you're actually playing the maps is that you can also shift out of the Nightmare like voluntarily early on before the meter depletes. So you can just go in and then you have like a little cooldown of maybe like 2 seconds or something to go out again. But essentially you can just like blast everything around you and you don't really have to go very far if you don't see any monsters. For example, now we're going in and here we see a lot of enemies, we blast them down. But for example, if like this is just like completely empty now, I wouldn't try to like run around for like 5 seconds to kill something that is like in the last corner. Instead, you can just preserve the rest of your juice here and then shift out again. There's not really a big cost to shifting in. It just like takes maybe 5% of the whole thing, and it also spawns extra enemies around you when you do so. So in that case, you don't really lose anything, and you can clear maps much more efficiently by just deciding when it is enough and shifting out again. So essentially the same here. You can just like go in, blast everything down, for example with a little cooldown like my Malvein of Arrows, and then go out again. And this also makes it so you don't really move very far and you don't have to backtrack very much for some kind of loot that dropped. Now for the Crucible, if you haven't checked that out yourself, you can upgrade all these extra bonuses here. Eventually you're gonna unlock them all, so don't worry. And there is one in particular that's very interesting early on, which is the Stitched Wounds, which you get quite early actually, which gives you a chance to add a link to the largest group of sockets. So when you find a 6 socket items that has 5 links, you can try to stick it in there, and you can corrupt it up to 3 times, so you get 3 times this 15% chance to sync second. So this is very neat. Obviously you might break the item in the process because it might become really unusable with the detrimental modifier, but worst case you just sell it for the Divine Orb, which is very nice. There are also some other really neat additional modifiers here, like you can absorb more corruption, so you just get everything faster. There's like have a chance to get an additional beneficial modifier. You have even a chance to slam items here when you put like a yellow item in there. So there's some really juicy stuff. And later on you're also gonna get a second map slot. The Dream Furnace slot is the map slot here. And then you can just do 2 maps at a time with 2 items at a time. Now, which items do you really want to put in there? So in the campaign we did a lot of like weapons and stuff like that. In fact, in Act 1 I managed to get a corrupted like T1 lightning flat roll on the bow, and I just used that bow like all the way to like Act 4 or something. So it was quite funny, and corrupting a white item will actually basically alchemy them for free. So that's very nice early on. Here later, either you just buy maybe cheap uniques and start corrupting them so that you can use them or sell them if you get a good result, because these corruptions can really help some of those very budget items to become extremely good. Right now I just have like some random rings in there because we wanted to get some upgrades, so we're just kind of trying to get lucky here. But this is definitely a strategy that I would suggest, especially if your build has any kind of very budget, very affordable uniques. I would just take those and start corrupting. In fact, you can actually pre-corrupt items already. You can see here, for example, my gold worm. It has 151,000 corruption absorbed, which is actually the maximum for this item. So you can over-corrupt it without actually pressing this transform button here. So right now it's ready to corrupt to rank 1, and if I don't like the outcome, I can just immediately go to rank 2 and then rank 3, because I have the maximum corruption absorbed. You can just stick your item in there and leave it there. And in my case, I'm actually waiting for my Eternal Lab enchant to get some better result, and then I'm gonna start corrupting it and see what happens. So quite excited, but definitely a nice strategy as well. Like you can just take your item and already prepare it to maybe get a really good result later on. Now, I haven't seen a full list of the Scourge corruption modifiers yet, but essentially it's very often something like some extra damage or some attack speed, move speed, stuff like that, some generic stats, and also resists very often. Either can be plus resist, minus resist. So you always have this one beneficial and one detrimental modifier, unless you roll an extra one from this Crucible extra passive, and they become a bit more powerful as you rank up the Scourge. There can also be certain effects like never deal critical strikes. So obviously that can completely break a build in some cases, and you're gonna be aware that this can happen. But very often you can also get some results that don't really have any big downside for your build, and that's kind of the idea behind the whole mechanic. So this is also what you want to try to shoot for with your own items. Now, unfortunately, you can't stick in any flask or jewels or some other special items here. It's mostly just regular equipment slots, but that is also already pretty cool. In case you don't have anything available to you and there's like just an empty slot, you can just pick up something from the ground. So I would suggest rings is overall a really good target because they can just roll well, or these cheap uniques as I mentioned, or you just buy something from a vendor worst case if you're like still in early progression, and just have something ready that you can stick in there once these are ready to transform. So this is what I wanted to share here for now. I will be experimenting more of this when the time comes, and then also maybe make another video about some end game Scourge corruptions. For now, I'm just gonna juice up this map here, see what happens, and I think it's gonna be incredibly rewarding once you actually get there. And other than that, I hope that everyone had a great league start. So far, I had a lot of fun this Scourge League. I think this is one of the greatest patches so far, and the league mechanic is really amazing too. So, hope you liked this video, and I'll see you guys next time.